All right, I'm very happy now to welcome back to the show Rafael Kadaris, a regular contributor here on the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show and a member of the RevCom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. Rafael, you're in Chicago right now. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sansar.
All right, and you are in Chicago because you're getting ready for the criminal convention of the Party of War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity, the Democratic Party, that is taking place very soon. Why don't you tell us what's going down and how you see this convention?
So as people may know, next week in Chicago, the 19th through the 22nd is going to be the Democratic National Convention. Tens of thousands of people coming to Chicago from all over the country to celebrate the coronation of, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. The eyes of the world are going to be watching what's going down in Chicago. This is an opportunity and a need for us to get out there in a major way and bust through the hype around Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Supposedly all the pundits are saying that they're putting the joy back in politics, that they're promoting optimism. No, they're promoting oppression and putting the joy back in genocide. So we should talk about this, what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the Democratic Party, as you said, a party of war crimes and crimes against humanity, what they actually represent and what the RevComs need to be out there doing, and everyone who's hearing this message, come and join with us next week in Chicago as we bring a message of revolution. Our only options are not fascist Trump versus, cold-blooded Kamala Harris. Our real choice is, are we going to get organized for a revolution to get rid of this whole system? And there is an alternative to this. Bob Avakian, the revolutionary leader that's developed a whole new communism and a strategy for revolution in this time we're living in now. These are not our only choices. We got to choose revolution, and people got to get with the force for revolution, the RevCom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. We're going to be out there in the streets, joining with the protest, but bringing a message of revolution right into this, Democratic convention where we're all supposed to be getting behind a bunch of war criminals, mass incarcerators, fascism deniers. So let's talk more about it.
There is a dizzying level, almost unprecedented level of enthusiasm and hype being whipped up among decent people who should know better. For Kamala, for Tim Walz, just a few weeks ago, a lot of decent people were really demoralized. They're starting to look at the looming fascism of Trump. They're disheartened by the genocide in Gaza, and they just were feeling defeated and like there was no way to go up against this. And then Biden dropped out. Kamala was anointed. A whole propaganda machine got going behind her. All of a sudden, people are thinking she is like the greatest thing, maybe since Obama. And there's probably lessons there, too. I think it'd be important for you to go a little further on why you call this putting the joy back in genocide, why the optimism and oppression. What is really underneath this?
Well, just 4 days ago or something, the state of Israel with weaponry from the United States, from the Biden administration, which very much includes Kamala Harris, dropped a bomb on a school in Gaza City that slaughtered 100 people.
We can't show you the full horror of this scene. The floors covered with bodies, blood, and limbs.
There was no bodies recognizable, just little pieces of flesh. And the families were given bags of 70 kilograms of random flesh because the bodies were so torn up by the weapons that are being supplied by the United States of America. Don't be fooled by Kamala Harris's honeyed words about how she cares about the Palestinian people. She doesn't give a fuck about the Palestinian people. She doesn't give a fuck about them. What she gives a fuck about is serving the interests of U.S. imperialism, which means having the state of Israel as a loyal attack dog, serving U.S. interests in that region. And right now, that means the real danger of this war spiraling out into wider regional war. The U.S., is continuing to back Israel as Israel assassinates, leaders of Hamas in Iran, assassinates leaders of Hezbollah in Lebanon, There's a real danger of this spiraling out into a much wider war. And remember, Iran and Hezbollah are also backed by Russia, which is a nuclear armed power. Israel is a nuclear armed power. There's a real danger of this turning into wider war. This is what the Democrats represent. This is what Kamala Harris represents. She is a war criminal, drenched in the blood of the Palestinian people and endangering all of humanity. And if you want to look at her record on domestic questions, the oppression of Black people, which is right at the core of this country, don't be fooled by having a Black face now in power. Haven't we seen this play before? Haven't we seen this movie before? When they elected Obama, in 2008, spent 8 years in power. Did that stop the oppression of Black people? Did that stop the police murder? No, the cops killed 1,000 people every year that Obama was in power. Mass incarcerated Black and brown people, nearly the highest incarceration rate in the world, in this country under Obama. Drone bombed 7 countries, escalated production of oil, fracking, all that under Obama. Did any of that change? Did things get better for Black people, for women, for LGBT people, for the people of the world under Obama? Haven't we seen this play before? This is what the Democrats represent, but it's not just the Democrats. It's not just Kamala, who has been a cold-blooded persecutor of Black and brown people for decades now, since she was a prosecutor in California and in the Bay Area and then in the state of California. It's not just Kamala Harris. It's a system. It's a system that has of capitalism, imperialism. And if you don't play by the rules of that system, you are out. And if you want to be commander in chief of this system and you want to rise up the ranks of this capitalist imperialist system, you got to be as ruthless and as cutthroat as this system requires. And that's what Kamala Harris has proven over and over and over again to do, and that's why we're going to the DNC and we're breaking people out of this hype and delusion. Some of us were having a conversation earlier today about, is the right metaphor for Kamala Harris and the Democrats and the Democratic National Convention is the right metaphor that they're giving out opium and fentanyl to the people to put them to sleep, or is the right metaphor that they're giving people crack to hype them up? I personally think it's more like crack to hype them up with this, euphoric delusion, about Kamala is going to change anything. No, we need revolution, nothing less. And that's why we're going to the Democratic Convention. And the most important thing that we're bringing there is the work and leadership of Bob Avakian. No one else is even talking about a real revolution, and has a plan for a real revolution. And there's going to be people out there, very importantly, tens of thousands, I hope, at least thousands, hopefully tens of thousands of people out there protesting, demanding a stop to this genocide. But none of them are saying what Bob Avakian's saying. I was just listening to one of these leaders of the protests movement, one of these so-called socialists, who is saying that the system's going to just collapse on its own, from its own contradictions. Bullshit. He was quoted in the LA Times saying this. No, this system is destroying the environment. This system's pushing things to world war. This system's giving rise to fascism. We are going to end up with the destruction of humanity before we just end up with, socialism falling into our laps because the system collapsed. We got to fight for this. We got to fight for this, which is not what these so-called socialists are about, but it's up to us. So we're calling on people, come join the RevCom Corps at this, bring this message of revolution, bring the leadership that we have for revolution to this convention. No one else is going to do it but us. And it is an opportunity, once again, with the eyes of the world and so many people getting politicized now. Like you said, everyone was, despairing 3 weeks ago. Now they're all excited. All right, well, that excitement is going to wear off, and we got to help them wear off faster. But we also got to lead people in a different direction.
All right, Rafael, you brought alive really powerfully just now the truly criminal horrific nature of what these Democrats are, what they stand for, what this whole system is actually at its core. So what are your plans? What are the plans for the RevComs on the ground in Chicago, in the eyes of the world, when millions of eyes are going to be trained on Chicago, when protesters are going to be coming into the city, when media is going to be concentrated there? What's the message you're going to be putting out? How are you going to be acting? And for people who resonated with what you just exposed about these Democrats who don't want to be party to that and who do want to be part of bringing forward the only real alternative, a real revolution led by Bob Avakian, the whole new communism he's brought forward. For people who want to see that strengthened in this time, what should they be doing as well?
So we are staging a political and ideological intervention at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. But this is also what people can be part of, all over the country, whatever city you're in. Trust me, this Democratic National Convention is not just going to be a Chicago thing. This is how they're whipping people up to, go along with the crimes that the system's carrying out and get people, believing the hype about Kamala Harris while, they also lull people to sleep in the face of, Trump and these Republican fascists who are getting ready for civil war if they don't win this election. They think this is a final battle. They think Trump is on a mission from God. They are not going to accept the results, even if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win this election. So this is really serious. People got to reckon with what time it is. And we have to bring people what they really need, which is the leadership of Bob Avakian every single week. Just this past week, Bob Avakian came out with these messages directly about Kamala Harris, Tim Walz. The first one was Revolution number 71. It was titled, "Supporting a Mass Murderer and Mass Incarcerator Running for President? Who could be so desperate and deluded?" This message was so challenging to the people who are caught up in the hype. And Bob Avakian brings the reality, both about what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz really represent, but also the reality of the revolution that's needed and possible in this moment. The latest one, Revolution number 72, is titled, "Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and the Rest. We don't need your promise of America. We need a revolution to put an end to your system." And he breaks down what the promise of America really has represented from slavery all the way up to the present and the so-called founding fathers that, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are promoting and supposed to get people excited and worshiping. So, it tells you a lot about what these leaders really represent. There was another one, number 69, where Bob Avakian raised the question of how come these, politicians are always bragging about their history as prosecutors and as veterans, i.e. war criminals for this U.S. military. So, we got a veteran and a prosecutor running for president right now. What does that tell you about the nature of this system? So this is fire agitation, and it needs to get out there. And it's revolutionary leadership and guidance in this moment to break people out of the bourgeois electoral bullshit and into the revolution that's needed and challenge people to actually become part of the forces for revolution. And we're going to be getting this out there. We're going to have sound trucks. We're going to have creative banner drops. We're going to be out in the middle of these protests, getting this out to all the protesters. We're going to be going to where the media is. We're not going to give all the plans right here on this in this interview, but DM at the RevComs or DM the RevCom Corps Chi. That's for the RevCom Corps Chicago. And wherever you are in the country, go to revcom.us, download the materials, be part of spreading at Bob Avakian Official everywhere throughout your city. Go out on the street, go out on the train and start agitating about this Democratic National Convention. Tell people to break out of the bourgeois electoral bullshit and start following this leader, this revolution, and make a huge donation so that we can get this campaign and this revolution out far and wide. And seriously, DM us to be part of this, the actual movement, the actual forces for revolution in this moment where it can make all the difference.
Rafael Kadaris, I'm so glad that you're down on the ground in Chicago. I'm glad you were able to make the time to talk with us and really make a powerful impact. And I hope people answer the call you put out all over the country to do this wherever you are as well.
All right. Thanks, Sansar.
And to take us out of this segment, we're going to play just a snippet from Bob Avakian's social media message, Revolution number 71, to give you a feel for it.
We don't have to choose between mass murderers and plunderers of people and the environment. We can seize on this rare opportunity to build up the basis for revolution, getting organized now in the thousands, with the basis to win over millions, and go all out to seize on this rare opportunity to make a real emancipating revolution. It's time to cast away foolish and harmful illusions, trying to turn enforcers of a monstrous system like Kamala Harris into some kind of heroes. Time to get with the RevCom Corps for the emancipation of humanity and actively work for the revolution that is urgently needed and is possible in this time we are living in now.